My dad called my custom garage grease-stained trash and cut me out of the family legacy. Then begged me for $130,000 when my brother crashed the company. The moment I pulled up to the old house in Lakeway, Texas, I regretted coming. It had been 7 years since I last set foot here. Thanksgiving was just the excuse they'd been waiting for, I guess. Some symbolic olive branch. But I knew better. I parked the Harley and cut the engine. The silence after the rumble was deafening. I reached into my backpack and pulled out the caramel bourbon pie, still warm, from a bakery off South Congress. Figured maybe if the pie was sweet enough, it'd cover the bitterness underneath. My name's Evan. I'm 30 years old. I live in Austin now, where I run a custom motorcycle shop called Iron Ember. Business is good, more than good, actually. But none of that matters here. The second I stepped inside, it was like I never left. Same beige carpet, same stiff-backed dining chairs that creaked if you leaned wrong. My mom barely looked up from the kitchen. My dad gave me one of those firm nods that says, "Don't make a scene." My younger brother Colin slapped me on the back like we were best friends. I handed Mom the pie. "From Emery's on South First," I said. She smiled a little too tight. "That's nice, Evan. There's still room in the fridge." "No thank you." No hug. Dinner was a disaster in slow motion. The turkey was dry. Colin wouldn't stop talking about his new promotion at Dad's logistics company. My mom kept pouring wine into everyone's glasses like it might lubricate the awkward. Then, halfway through dinner, Dad stood up and tapped his glass with a butter knife. "I have an announcement," he said. I braced myself. My instincts were screaming. As many of you know, I'm planning to retire in the next year or so. It's time for the company to stay in the family. I'm proud to say I've chosen Colin to take over leadership of Grayson Freight and the family assets. There it was. Everyone clapped. I just stared. I looked at my mother. Nothing. I looked at Colin, who had the smugness of a man who thought he deserved it. I looked at my father, who couldn't even meet my eyes. I set down my fork. What about me? The room quieted, like a record scratch. Colin chuckled like I was joking. Dad didn't. "You made your choice, Evan," he said, folding his arms. "You walked away from real work to play with bikes." "I walked away because you gave me no choice," I said. "I've worked every job I could since I was 18. Put myself through school. I built something from scratch." My voice cracked, just once, but I kept going. "You don't think that counts?" Dad scoffed. "You run a garage for overpaid bikers. It's not a real business. It's grease-stained garbage." I stood. "You really believe that?" "I know that." My mom whispered, "Please, Evan, not now." I looked around the table. Colin's face was unreadable. My mother just looked tired. "No. You know what? You all made your choice." I grabbed my jacket, left the pie behind, slammed the door on all of them. It was the last Thanksgiving I ever attended, and the last time I called them family. Back then, I still believed if I worked hard enough, they'd be proud of me. I was 18 and fresh out of high school, sitting at the kitchen table with a stack of pamphlets and an acceptance letter in my hand. The University of Texas had offered me a partial scholarship to study mechanical engineering. My plan wasn't flashy, get the degree, intern with a shop that specialized in motorcycle restoration, maybe open my own place someday. Dad was reading the business section of the paper, the kind that still left ink on your fingers. He didn't even look up when I said, "I want to work on motorcycles. Not just repair them, restore them. Build custom machines from the frame up." He snorted. Actually snorted. "Why would you throw away a perfectly good brain on that?" "It's not throwing it away," I said. "It's engineering. Design. Precision. There's a hole." "You want to be a mechanic," he said flatly. "Just say it." "No, I want to." "You want to crawl under bikes for the rest of your life, breathing fumes, covered in grease." He finally looked up. "I run a company that ships medical tech across 4 states. That's a legacy." "What you're talking about? That's a hobby." I remember my hand shaking, just slightly, as I gathered the papers into a folder. I didn't bother asking for help. I already knew the answer. That night, I applied for every scholarship I could find. I waited tables, fixed busted scooters on the side, and eventually picked up freelance work as a CD designer for a guy who built performance bikes out of a garage in Pflugerville. I did whatever it took. By 24, I had my degree. By 26, I opened the doors to Iron Ember. It was nothing special at first, just a one-room shop behind an old furniture warehouse off Congress. But word spread. People started showing up, not just for repairs, but to talk builds. Vintage Indians, stripped-down Triumphs, wild custom Harleys. I knew what I was doing. And more importantly, I knew what I was building. What no one knew, not even my closest friends, was that I had helped Dad once, when everything was falling apart. It was 3 years ago. I got a call from Mom. Her voice was thin, like someone trying not to cry while holding a grocery list. "One of your father's major contracts pulled out last minute," she said. "The bank is circling. He'd kill me if he knew I called." "How bad is it?" "Bad enough that we might lose the business if we don't bridge the gap." I asked how much. 90,000. I remember staring at my shop's books that night. That money could have opened a second location, could have finally let me hire full-time help. But I wired it anyway. No contract, no terms, just a verbal agreement, and my mother's whispered, "You're a good son, Evan. You always were." Dad never acknowledged it. Not once. Later, I overheard Colin talking to him on speakerphone. "You're lucky I was able to make those numbers work," Colin said. "I found a short-term solution. We're fine now." "And my dad?" He said, "That's why I trust you, son. Not a word about me." I never mentioned the loan again. I figured maybe one day, when things settled, he'd pull me aside and say thank you. But he never did. Instead, he handed the company, and everything else, to Colin. Like I never existed. Like I hadn't saved him. I didn't realize it then, but that night, the night I hit confirm on that wire transfer, I let go of something I'd been chasing my whole life. Their approval. And I never got it back. The whole room went quiet after Dad's announcement. Colin sat there smirking like he'd just won a damn Oscar. My mom looked down at her plate like the mashed potatoes were the most fascinating thing she'd ever seen. No one said anything to me. Not a word. So I said it for them. What about me? I didn't yell. Didn't raise my voice. Just asked the question like I honestly didn't know the answer yet. Like maybe this was some big misunderstanding and Dad would chuckle and say, "Relax, Evan, of course you're included." But all I got was silence. A few cousins glanced down at their drinks. My aunt reached for another roll. My mom finally cleared her throat and said, "You're stable. Colin isn't." I blinked. "Excuse me." She didn't meet my eyes. "You have your business. Your life is settled. Colin still needs guidance." I looked across the table at Colin. He shrugged, all innocent. "Dude, why do you always make this stuff competitive? You mean like the time I paid for your bail and you told everyone Dad helped you out? Or when I gave you $3,000 to cover rent and you used it to buy a jet ski?" "That was one time," he muttered, still grinning like this was all hilarious. I turned back to Dad. "I saved your company. You remember that?" He scoffed. "You gave us a loan. We didn't ask you to." I laughed, cold and hollow. "You were days from defaulting. The only reason you didn't lose the company is because I wired you $90,000 in the middle of the night. You didn't ask for terms," he said, as if that made it irrelevant. "If you wanted something out of it, you should have been upfront." I stood up slowly. My hands were shaking, but not from nerves anymore. I didn't want to check. I wanted to matter. Dad pushed his chair back. "You want to matter? Then stop acting like you're better than this family just because you twist wrenches for rich people." I stepped around the table. "I built something. From nothing. You know what it takes to start a shop on grit alone." "Don't talk to me about grit," he snapped. "I built this family's legacy." "No," I said. "You built a company. I tried to build a relationship." Dad's voice rose, sharp and final. "Iron Ember is a garage for overpaid bikers who think loud pipes make them men. It's not a legacy. It's a distraction." Something in me cracked then. I looked around the table. At the people who clapped for Colin. At the ones who said nothing while I was being humiliated. At my mother, still staring at her wine. I said, "You know what? I came here hoping maybe there was still a place for me. That maybe family meant something. But now I see it. I'm not family. I'm just the guy who shows up when there's a bill to pay." No one argued. So I left. I didn't take my jacket. Didn't say goodbye. I walked out of that house and knew I was done trying. I chose dignity that night. They chose Colin. And they can have him. It started with a flathead screwdriver and a GoPro duct tape to the shop ceiling. Some kid had brought in a wrecked Ducati, twisted frame, busted tank, half the electronics fried from a bad wiring job. I had it on the lift, walking through the teardown while explaining the safety failures in plain English. Just me, my hands, and the bike. I posted the video on a whim. Custom bike teardown. What not to do when modding a Ducati. Figured a few of my regulars might find it useful. It hit 20,000 views in 3 days. At first, I thought it was a fluke. Just a weird corner of the internet finding a niche. But the next video did even better. And the one after that? It hit over 100,000. People weren't just watching, they were commenting, asking questions, sending photos of their own projects for advice. Some of them even flew in just to have me work on their bikes. Within 6 months, my channel passed 1.5 million subscribers. That's when I named it Iron Ember Customs. Same as the shop. Same as the logo I'd sketched on a bar napkin 5 years ago. I brought on a part-time camera guy. Started showing full builds from frame to finish. I kept the tone simple, just like always. No ego, no tech jargon, just straight-up craftsmanship. The emails started piling up. Sponsorship offers. Collaboration requests. A dealership wanted to partner on a custom line. I said no to most of it. I didn't want the hype. I just wanted the work. A mentor of mine, Pete, an old machinist from San Marcos who taught me how to lace wheels, once told me, "Let your hands speak louder than your mouth. The rest is noise." I never forgot that. So I stayed quiet at family gatherings. The rare times I showed up, I didn't talk about subscribers or storefronts or wait lists that stretched 6 months out. Didn't mention the second location I opened in Houston. Didn't say a word about the TEDx invite I turned down. Why? Because I knew how envy works. It dresses up like concern. Sounds like, that's a risky business, Evan. Or what's your backup plan? People don't like when you succeed without their permission. Especially family. Colin once asked me at a Christmas dinner, "So, how's the shop? Still fixing mopeds and scooters?" I smiled and said, something like that. Truth is, by then I'd rebuilt Jay Leno's old Honda CBX and shipped a carbon fiber Yamaha R6 to Dubai. But I didn't need them to clap for me. I had strangers halfway across the world thanking me for saving their lives with a basic brake tutorial. That was enough. I had finally built something real, on my terms, with my name, not theirs. And I didn't know them a damn thing. It was a Tuesday afternoon when the call came in, an unknown number, but I recognized the area code. Lakeway. I let it ring once, twice. Then I picked up. Hello. A pause. Then his voice, my father's, flat, but not as sharp as I remembered. Evan. I waited. No, how are you? No, it's been a while. I need to ask you something, he said. All right. I replied, already bracing myself. There's a situation with the company. A contract we counted on fell through. Colin signed off on an expansion that wasn't fully vetted. We're short. Badly. How short? 130,000. He said it like he was reading the numbers off a receipt. I leaned back in my chair at the shop. Outside, I could hear one of my guys revving a finished build for a client pickup. Let me guess, I said. You need me to bail you out. A long silence followed. I could almost hear the strain in his jaw. Yes. I nodded slowly, though he couldn't see it. Okay, before we go there, let's talk about something else. What? You still owe me 90 grand. Remember that? The money I gave to bridge the gap a few years back, when the last contract fell apart. Another beat of silence. Then, that wasn't a loan. No, it was a lifeline, I said. And you've treated it like an afterthought ever since. I thought we were past that, he muttered. We never were. He didn't respond. I could feel him trying to swallow the words, trying to play it cool. But I wasn't done. You disowned me in front of the family. Said I ran a grease-stained joke of a business. Said I didn't deserve to carry the family legacy. I was angry. No, you were honest, I said. You just didn't expect the guy you threw out to end up standing on solid ground. I heard his breath hitch. I'm not giving you anything, I said calmly. And if you still believe Colin is the future of Grayson Freight, maybe ask him to cover your screw-up. Evan. No, I said. You only remember me when you're bleeding. Family doesn't mean a thing to you unless it comes with a check. His voice dropped. I came to you because I thought. You came to me because Colin broke it, and you can't admit you bet on the wrong son. I hung up. Didn't wait for a reply. Because this time, he was the one who had to sit in the silence. And I was finally free of his need. The first email came 3 days after I told Dad no. Subject line, disappointed in Iron Ember. It was from some guy I didn't know, accusing me of abandoning my struggling family now that I was rich and too important to care. I figured it was a troll. Deleted it. But then 2 more came in. Then 5. Then 10. One customer canceled an appointment, citing values misalignment. Another left a 1-star review claiming I scammed my own father. That's when I knew. Colin. I opened Instagram and saw the post. His face, front and center, staring solemnly into the camera like someone had just run over his dog. It's hard to say this publicly, but here it is. My brother, Evan, has turned his back on our family. When our father's company hit a rough patch, we reached out, not for a handout, but for help. Evan has the means. More than enough. But he said no. I'm not sharing this for pity. I'm sharing it because people need to know that success doesn't always mean integrity. Some people forget where they came from the second they get a taste of fame. Family should come first. Always. Hashtag family first, hashtag humbled, hashtag some people change. I didn't even need to scroll through the comments. I knew exactly what I'd find. I sat in the shop's back office, scrolling through the Yelp reviews that were suddenly dropping by the hour. Iron Ember is run by a guy who left his dad to suffer. Nice bikes, shady morals. Won't support someone who trashes their own family. And then there were the emails. So many of them. All based on one manipulative post. He knew what he was doing. He knew people would eat it up. Because the internet loves a villain, and he painted me perfectly. I called Olivia. She was a longtime friend, a no bullshit attorney who handled most of Iron Ember's contracts and trademark filings. She picked up after 2 rings. What's going on? I need to talk. In person. 20 minutes later, I was sitting across from her in her office with a printout of the post, a folder of canceled bookings, and a week's worth of nasty messages. She read in silence, flipping each page with a growing frown. This is textbook defamation, she said. Can we do anything? She raised an eyebrow. Do you want to? I paused. I want him to know he doesn't get to pull this crap and walk away clean. Good, she said, reaching for her keyboard. Because I see at least 3 counts here. Online defamation, malicious interference with a business, and reputational damage with clear monetary loss. She clicked away for a few seconds, then looked up. Do you have screenshots of the post? I have the original and every share I could grab. She nodded. Perfect. We're filing. I exhaled. For the first time in days, I felt steady again. Colin thought he could control the story, but I had facts. And I had Olivia. The courtroom smelled like lemon-scented floor polish and old wood. I sat at the plaintiff's table next to Olivia, wearing the only suit I owned that wasn't tailored for weddings or funerals. Across from us, Colin was adjusting his tie like it was choking him. His lawyer looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. The judge was a woman in her 60s, sharp-eyed and patient, the kind who didn't tolerate theatrics. Olivia opened clean and steady. Your Honor, my client, Evan Grayson, is the owner of Iron Ember Customs, a nationally recognized custom motorcycle business with 2 physical locations and over 1.5 million online followers. Since the defendant's social media post, which was not only false but intentionally defamatory, Mr. Grayson has received an influx of harassment, customer cancellations, and reputational damage, all tied directly to the viral spread of the defendant's false statements. She handed over a binder thick enough to break a table leg. Inside, you'll find screenshots of the original post, a spreadsheet of financial losses by week, and emails from long-term clients who backed out citing family ethics concerns. The connection is direct, measurable, and malicious. The judge flipped through the first few pages, nodding slightly. Colin's attorney stood, all fake charm and empty words. This is a family dispute, Your Honor, not a legal one. My client was expressing his feelings, which is protected speech. Feelings. Olivia shot back, standing again. When your client implies my client left his father to suffer, knowing full well the truth is the opposite, that's not an opinion. That's a lie told for public sympathy. The judge raised a hand. Enough. I'll review the evidence. We sat through 2 hours of witness statements, screenshots, Olivia presenting every angry DM, and review in clear sequence. Colin didn't say much. He didn't look at me once. When it came time for his side to speak, their argument was paper-thin. They leaned on emotional appeals. He was upset. He didn't think it would blow up like that. He didn't mean harm. Then the judge asked the question that changed everything. Mr. Grayson, she said, turning to Colin, did you know the business your brother owns relies heavily on digital reputation and online bookings? He fidgeted. I guess so. And you made no effort to correct the impression that he had abandoned your father, despite knowing that he previously lent your family a substantial amount of money? No, he muttered. Did you even ask your brother privately for help before posting publicly? Silence. That's what I thought. She closed the file. Judgment in favor of the plaintiff. Damages awarded, $260,000. I didn't flinch. Olivia squeezed my arm once, quick and light. Colin sat frozen. His lawyer whispered something. Colin just stared straight ahead. Turns out the damages weren't just financial. He had to sell his share of Grayson Freight. The condo in downtown Austin went next. All because he tried to drag me down and ended up burying himself. Truth was, I didn't want revenge. I wanted accountability. And I got it. In writing. On record. For the whole damn world to see. It was a stormy Saturday in March when the knock came. I was in the garage, tuning a Bonneville for a client in Dallas. The kind of work that calms the nerves and quiets the brain. Rain tapped steady against the shop roof, thunder rumbling low in the distance. The whole world felt hushed. Then, 3 sharp knocks on the side door. Not the front entrance where customers come through. The personal side door. I wiped my hands on a rag and opened it. There she was. My mother. Hair soaked at the edges, clutching her coat around her like it could keep her pride intact. Her face looked thinner, older. The kind of worn-in tired that years of denial can carve into a person. Hi, she said quietly. I didn't move. She glanced at the rain. Can I come in? I hesitated, then stepped aside. She sat on the edge of a stool by the tool bench, hands folded in her lap, like she was waiting for judgment. I didn't know where else to go, she said. Your father's in the hospital. I stayed quiet. Heart complications. The doctors are saying it's serious. Still, I said nothing. She wasn't here for conversation. She finally said it. We need help. I need help. The treatment, it's expensive. $25,000. Her voice cracked slightly. She didn't cry. Not yet. She looked up at me like she was still trying to find the version of me who used to say yes. I nodded slowly. Not out of agreement. Out of understanding. I figured, I said. Evan, please. I know things got broken. But your father's not well. Yeah, I said. And neither was I when he disowned me. I'm not asking for him, she said quickly. I'm asking for your help. That's when I saw it. The way her eyes were pleading, not from grief, but from desperation. Not because she missed me, Because I was the last option. I took a deep breath. Calm. Clear. To me, you both died the day you let Colin destroy me, I said. She flinched. You sat there while he smeared me. You said nothing when I was erased from the family business, from your table, from your life. Evan, we were under pressure. No, you were under judgment. And you chose him. I walked over to the door and opened it again. You should ask your heir. She stared at me, lips trembling. I'm not the family ATM anymore. I nodded toward the open doorway. And she left. No umbrella. No apology. Just the sound of her footsteps in the rain. And the silence that followed when the door shut behind her. This time, it stayed shut. A week after my mother showed up, I got curious. Not because I doubted the hospital story, but because some part of me needed to know if she was still lying, still using guilt as leverage. So I called the hospital she mentioned, asked for my father's attending doctor. I explained who I was, that I wasn't next of kin, just looking for a general status update. They confirmed the truth. He'd had a cardiac episode. He was stable now, but they'd recommended a procedure that wasn't fully covered by insurance. So yeah, the emergency was real. But then I did a little more digging. Turns out, my parents still owned their Lakeway house outright. No mortgage. Property values in that neighborhood had shot up in the last 5 years. That house was worth easily 4 times the amount of the hospital bill. I stared at the listing page from a similar house up the street, then closed my laptop and opened my messages. Typed one last text. Sell the house. Simple. Cold. Final. I didn't wait for a reply. I blocked the number right after. The next morning, I brewed my coffee slow. Took the Bonneville out for a ride through hill country while the roads were still damp, and the sun cut through the clouds like it was making up for the days it had missed. I thought about everything. The sacrifices. The nights I worked until 2 in the morning with busted knuckles and an aching back. The money I gave without contracts. The time I showed up without being asked. The way I kept trying to earn something they were never willing to give. Respect. And I realized I'd finally stopped wanting it. That was the real closure. Not the lawsuit. Not the public fallout. Not even telling them no. It was letting go of the question that haunted me for years. Why wasn't I enough? Now I knew the answer. Because they were never looking for enough. They were looking for convenient. For obedient. For invisible. But I was none of those things anymore. That night, I sat down in front of the camera in the shop, same setup I always used, and recorded a video. At the end, after walking through a custom Triumph rebuild, I paused and looked into the lens. Look, I said, some of you out there are dealing with people who only show up when they want something. People who twist love into leverage. People who call you selfish the second you say no. I want you to know something. I let a beat hang there. You're not selfish for walking away. You're not cruel for protecting your peace. Sometimes self-respect is the only inheritance you need. Then I smiled, soft and tired and real. Ride safe. See you next week. I clicked stop. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I had anything left to prove. Not to them. Not to anyone.